depending on who you ask, it's either revolutionised dating or ruined it. Tinder is the world's hottest relationships app, and for many Brits, its unique selling point is clear.
Have you heard of Tinder?
I've heard of it, yeah.
What do you associate Tinder with?
Dating.
What do you associate Tinder with?
People that want to meet to hook up.
Just sex, let's be honest.
Hookups.
There's nothing else.
So the app's minimum age came as a shock.
What do you think the minimum age to use Tinder is?
18 or 21 maybe?
What if I told you it was 13?
That's wrong.
That's pretty shocking.
What if I told you it was 13?
Really? That seems quite young.
That's a bit shocking. No, I don't like that. No.
Why are teens allowed on Tinder? Well, here's the loophole. You have to use your Facebook account to log in and use Tinder. Facebook's minimum age is 13, so Tinder's minimum age is 13 as well. The under 18s aren't supposed to be able to see or message adults, and vice versa. Tinder relies on Facebook to verify people, but Facebook doesn't seem to make any age checks at all, and that means adults can easily get into the child's area on Tinder. It's taken me just a few minutes to set up a Facebook account posing as a 13-year-old. At no stage does anyone seem to have checked my age. I can now use that Facebook account to log into Tinder and then chat with thousands of teenagers, none of whom have any idea that the person they're talking to is well over 18 years old. The app works by showing you pictures of other users. Swipe right to say you like them, left to reject. If a person you liked also swipes right on you, you're both notified of a match and you can start chatting. Even though the profile we set up was for a 13-year-old, some of the people we've spoken to have turned the conversations very sexual very quickly. We've been immediately asked to send nude photographs, asked to meet up explicitly for the purposes of sex. These are not the kind of conversations you would necessarily want your 13-year-old daughter to be having online with a total stranger.
My daughter did respond with some fairly explicit messages.
Dave had no idea his 16-year-old daughter was using Tinder. When he found out what she was saying to a boy who claimed to be 17, he was deeply worried. We've disguised his identity to protect his daughter.
She had been asked to send photographs of herself to this lad, naked photographs. To have questions like that put to someone who is just 16 was wholly inappropriate as far as I was concerned. The person communicating could quite literally be anybody. And as far as I'm concerned, Tinder should be on the top shelf, out of reach.
It's impossible to know how many other examples like Dave's there are, but his concerns are echoed by child protection experts.
Well, obviously it's extremely worrying. The particular problem with dating sites like Tinder is that the environment on which they're on tends to be quite highly sexualised, and there's a lot of innuendo, a lot of sexually suggestive chat, a lot of semi-nude pictures, for example, and it's really not appropriate for children and adults to be meeting and talking to each other on a platform like that.
Tinder told us,
"Our terms of service prohibit misconduct. Users that violate our terms of use are deleted from Tinder. Like most companies rooted in social media, we think it's important for parents to speak with their children about safe and age-appropriate online behaviour."
Facebook said,
"Accounts found to be using a fake name will be removed as soon as they're reported to us. We fight hard against online child exploitation and quickly remove related profiles and malicious content as a priority when it breaks our rules."
Tinder's tender 3-year existence has been a Silicon Valley dream. Its current billion-dollar-plus valuation puts it in the so-called unicorn club of internet startups. But there are signs the love affair is hitting a stormy patch. Last week, Vanity Fair accused Tinder of bringing about a dating apocalypse. Tinder responded with a tirade of widely mocked, angry tweets, and since then, its chief executive has stepped down. Reducing attraction to a left-right swipe may be a satisfying technological leap, but dealing with child safety is a bit more complicated. It seems Tinder is struggling with relationships out in the real world.
Well, the unstoppable popularity of cyber dating sites like Tinder reveals just how far technology is forging ahead of the rest of society, pushing boundaries we didn't even know were there. From safety issues involving young teenagers to the very way we conduct relationships. Is Tinder simply the modern equivalent of chatting someone up in a nightclub, or is it killing romance? With me now are two former users of Tinder, Sophie Wilkinson, news editor at The Debrief, and Rosie Gizauskas, a freelance writer and journalist. Sophie, first, be honest with me, is Tinder just about one-night stands?
As someone who's in a relationship that was very much facilitated by social media, and I mean, I think it might be fair to say that I'd probably be a virgin without social media, or I'd just be like very unhappily straight. I think, I think Tinder really helps people connect with each other in ways that aren't necessarily out there when we've got such busy lives. And it is a bit of a shame that we tend to that we've reached a point where we've compartmentalised ourselves into like little sellable profiles, but we're kind of doing that everywhere else in our lives. And
But it's a bit superficial, though, isn't it? You know, clicking on a picture. I mean, it's all about how someone looks and their sex appeal, isn't it?
I think that's dating as well. I think it does tend to be people. Well, I think also, I mean, my partner, we met online before Tinder. We were talking a bit on Twitter beforehand, and we got to know each other via a very verbal format. And obviously, things like Instagram have really soared in popularity, and that and they do affect the way we behave in real life. But I think picking someone on the basis of their attractiveness is quite ancient.
Rosie, do you agree with that?
I think it's true, but Tinder's something that I'm starting to find really depressing. I think it's changed the dating scene for sure. It's kind of reinvigorated things, but when I go out to a bar and I look around, I notice that no one's talking to each other. Everyone is sitting there on their phone. No one's interacting. They're obviously swiping left and swiping right and not actually speaking to the people next door to each other.
Is it killing social interaction?
I think sometimes it encourages it. I don't think Tinder itself could be blamed for that. I think we're living in a world where everybody's got all sorts of apps on their phones, and I think people are just as likely to be playing Candy Crush as they are to be, I suppose, playing the game, which is Tinder. It can be quite, it is a game sometimes, but I think it does encourage social interaction. People like to discuss it with friends and stuff.
Well, also, when there's only so many Mr. and Mrs. Rights, it might actually be easier to find someone online when you've got more options.
Maybe, but then you've got these dates of people that you have met through a screen. You have no idea if you're actually going to click until you get there, which is, it's interesting, but we don't have the actual chemistry and DNA and the things you actually need, like the touch and smell, those sensory things that we've actually evolved to need as human beings to click with somebody through Tinder. And
so you're kind of yearning for that age of romance where your eyes meet across the...
Yeah, I do. I think Tinder has its place, but I do think that it's sort of taking over in a way that kind of scares me, especially when it comes to younger people. I didn't grow up with it, but people are growing up with it now, and it does sort of worry me. How are they going to meet each other? Is it actually going to be through this format now?
And you saw in Jeff's piece there, 13-year-olds, is Tinder a place for 13-year-olds?
I'm speaking on behalf of The Debrief, and we only really look at 20-something audiences. From my own personal experience, I used a lot of really bad, horrible forums where I met people and kind of managed to eke out like-minded people there. But I think, there were definitely people talking to me when I was younger who should not have been talking to me, but there was no accountability. I think the fact that Tinder, you have to be linked to your Facebook or Instagram account, offers a bit of accountability. You can see mutual friends there. And I think younger people are very wary of people they don't necessarily trust. Like, if you look at the success of Catfish, the TV programme, it really has led a lot of people to understand that you can't necessarily trust everyone.
Yeah. Thinking that people could be on Tinder at that age that again terrifies me. I think people are too young at that age or too impressionable. And I think people need to be meet each other, in a natural way and not through the internet and through...
Is it misogynistic, do you think? That there's a sort of way in which women are being seen as commodities a bit, aren't they?
Well, there are men on Tinder as well. I think I think the misogyny is in Nancy Jo Sales' piece for Vanity Fair. It's indicated that it said explicitly that men are the ones who are dictating the dating scene. That shouldn't happen anywhere, regardless of Tinder. And the fact it can actually be measured on Tinder is really interesting. It can show us where we can change. All these messages that people get online on Tinder, it's almost great that they're online and not in real life, because it does happen in real life. We've just finally got a measure for it. And I think in order to combat this, we really need to get a lot more women working in tech and building the environments we're meant to exist in.
Sophie, Wilkinson and Rosie Gizauskas, thank you very much for joining us.